It's going to get way worse as the final blow was delivered to this once great nation. By Carl CiminiApril 5, 2025. In a vote that stretched deep into Thursday night, the Republican-led Senate narrowly passed a sweeping budget framework that not only seeks to extend Trump-era tax cuts, but also opens the door to deep spending reductions in key social programs. The 51-48 vote came after a marathon session in which Senate Republicans rejected dozens of Democratic amendments designed to shield core safety net programs from potential cuts. At the heart of the GOP-backed plan is a permanent extension of the 2017 tax cuts, measures that disproportionately favor high-income earners, according to critics. While proponents claim the extensions are necessary to prevent average Americans from seeing a 22% tax hike, Democrats argue the move will balloon the national deficit and primarily benefit the wealthy. But beyond tax policy, the late-night vote signaled a more profound shift, an assault on the programs millions of Americans rely on during times of hardship. Austerity by design. Democrats had proposed a slate of amendments aimed at rescinding former President Donald Trump's widely criticized trade tariffs that economists say are already exacerbating inflation and slowing economic growth. Alongside tariff relief, they sought to secure funding for Medicare, Medicaid, nutrition programs for women and children, Social Security, and veterans benefits. Every one of those efforts was struck down along party lines. What we saw last night was a surgical dismantling of the American safety net, said Sen. Patty Murray. At a time when working families are still struggling with high prices and uncertain futures, Republicans are choosing to cut lifelines while locking in tax breaks for billionaires. One senior Democratic aide, speaking on background, put it more bluntly: not only is Trump crashing the economy again, his obedient lapdog Republicans are cutting the safety nets to shreds. Debt and doubt. The framework also includes a provision to raise the debt ceiling by as much as $5 trillion, bringing the projected federal debt to $36.6 trillion. While necessary to avoid a government default, the move underlines the scale of spending the GOP is willing to approve in order to fund tax extensions, even as it slashes vital programs. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates the permanent tax cuts alone could add $5.7 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. The everyday impact. For ordinary Americans, the implications could be dramatic. Should the proposed cuts make it through the House and into binding legislation, millions could face reduced access to health care, food assistance, and retirement security. Veterans groups have already voiced alarm at the prospect of benefit rollbacks, while advocates for children's health warn of increased child poverty. Meanwhile, the stock market, already rattled by renewed tariffs and economic uncertainty, continues its downward slide. Economists warn that consumer confidence, already fragile, may erode further in the face of program cuts and job losses from trade blowback. Next steps. The budget framework now moves to the House of Representatives, where its fate remains uncertain. Moderate Republicans may balk at cuts to popular programs, but House leadership has signaled support for the broader package. This is just the beginning, said Sen. Bernie Sanders. What we saw last night was not governance, it was cruelty as policy. The 51-48 vote, with dissent from GOP Senators Susan Collins and Rand Paul, advances key components of former President Donald Trump's economic agenda. Tax implications for individuals. The central element of the framework is the permanent extension of the individual tax cuts enacted in 2017. Republicans contend that without this extension, many Americans would face an average tax increase of 22%. However, critics argue that these extensions disproportionately benefit higher income earners and could exacerbate income inequality. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates that making these cuts permanent could add $5.7 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. Potential changes to social programs. The budget blueprint proposes reforms to entitlement programs such as Medicaid and food assistance, aiming to reduce government spending. While specific details are pending, such reforms could lead to tightened eligibility criteria or reduced benefits, directly affecting low-income families who rely on these services. Democrats and some moderate Republicans have voiced concerns about the potential impact on vulnerable populations. Debt ceiling increase. To accommodate the proposed tax extensions and spending plans, the framework includes a provision to raise the federal debt ceiling by up to $5 trillion, increasing the nation's debt to $36.6 trillion. Supporters argue this move is necessary to prevent a default and maintain economic stability. Opponents, however, warn that escalating national debt could lead to higher interest rates and long-term economic challenges. Economic context. The Senate's decision comes amid economic uncertainties, including a sharp stock market decline driven by recent trade tariffs introduced by former President Trump. These factors have heightened fears of a potential recession, adding complexity to the economic landscape as lawmakers navigate fiscal policy decisions. As the budget framework advances to the House of Representatives, Americans are advised to stay informed about potential changes to tax policies and social programs that could affect their financial well-being. Sources: Reuters, Associated Press.
Please subscribe to Carl's Mind Chime channel and like what you see, hear, or read. Mind chimes are not easy and take serious work, so if you read on Substack, watch on YouTube, or listen wherever you get your podcasts, let's support Carl's obsession.